and welcome to another episode of Positivity. We are delighted to be joined by the wonderful Harriet. Hi, Harriet.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, and where are you at the moment?
I'm at home in my house in a town called Stockton Heath, just outside Warrington in Cheshire, in the northwest.
Amazing. And is it rainy and horrible with you, or is the sun shining a bit further north?
Well, it's a bit grey and overcast, but it's actually not raining, but probably for only the first time this week. So,
well, let's hope that we can sort of spread some positivity and forget about the rain that's outside as well. So, first things first. This is obviously positivity. So we ask that everybody has a cuppa to hand.
Yes.
Have you got a cup of tea with you? Amazing.
Sure do. Yep.
What does it say on it?
Oh, it says, "Reading is my favorite occupation," which is a quote by Anne Bronte.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Have you got a normal English breakfast tea, or have you got any specials in there?
I do have Yorkshire tea. So yes, there's a bit of tea wars going on in my house. I'm American, as you can tell, so I'm not really affiliated to one tea brand or another, but my husband's flat out Yorkshire tea, but my son is PG Tips. And there's always a war between who's better, but I like Yorkshire. So.
Now, as an American, do you find the British obsession with tea very bizarre, or?
Yes, I do. And I am one of those Americans who used to make tea in the microwave. So I don't know if you've seen that video going around of that crazy lady in the South in America who makes like sugar tea in the microwave and says that's the right way to do it. But that's actually the way I used to do it. Not that much sugar, but like water in a cup, put it in the microwave with a tea bag, and that used to be it. I would never do that now, but that's the way I used to do it when I was younger.
I feel like that's a whole nother episode. Like, this is incredible.
Yeah. Crazy tea or something like that.
Well, I feel like I could sit here chatting about that all day. That's amazing.
I'm sorry for anyone who's offended by that.
We're glad to hear you got the Yorkshire tea. That's a firm favourite amongst other guests that we've had. So thank you very much for sharing. And obviously, so the mug that you have, the Anne Bronte quote, is that because you're a big fan of reading and some of her novels?
Yes, I am. I studied literature when I was at university, and that's really only because I just love reading books. And whenever anybody asked me what I wanted to do, I always just said read books. So I do. I love reading, and so the Bronte sisters were huge to me. I did 19th century literature, and it's probably based out of that. And really, I just try and read all the time. Although, funnily enough, during this lockdown time, I thought I would have oodles of time to read and loads of attention span to be able to do the reading. But I found that I could barely read at all, which was really upsetting because I thought like that would really be my main pastime. But I just found I couldn't really concentrate and focus enough on what I was reading. I found my mind was wandering all the time. And because I guess we were all this way, but in the beginning, I had no idea how long lockdown was going to go on. So I felt like, oh, there must be other things I should be doing or something like that. Now I look back and I think, yeah, I really should have read more. I wish I had. But that was a really weird thing I was not expecting at all, because I'm always looking for time to read. So
but I think that's happened now. We're sort of coming out of the other side of lockdown with lots of different activities. People have found that I could have done more of this, I could have done more of that, whether it's reading, whether it's running, whatever it might be. But it's all about remembering to be kind to yourself. And actually, yes, we did have more time, but as you say, it was more time sort of wondering what is going to happen next. And
exactly, yeah. I know, I agree with that. And like my daughter and I were just talking about that today, actually, because she just had to go into school to do an in-person survey about what her time in lockdown was like for school. And she said that one of their teachers was saying, what are some of your hobbies you've picked up? And they're all a bunch of teenagers, so no one's going to volunteer that information really. And then she said, because they didn't really give a very complete answer, we didn't really mention lots of things they were doing. He was saying like, what a terrible waste. It's been 16 weeks and you could have done this and that and this and that, and you've wasted all that time. I thought, oh, that's such a terrible thing to say to like teenagers who've just been getting through every day and, obviously doing lots, but they're not going to volunteer information about, what hobbies they've been getting up to. Because for them, they were just taking each day as it came, didn't they? They had no idea how long it was going to last, like any of us did. So Yeah.
Absolutely. And adapting to the new environment of homeschooling and so on for parents and children as well. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
it's
that's
all
right.
about, no, all about one day at a time. That's very much our motto at the moment in terms of we don't
Yeah.
look around the
Yeah.
corner. So so what is it that you do for work, and how has that been affected during the last few crazy months that we've had?
Well, I work in a primary school. I'm an office lady. So I spend most of my day during the school days in the office at school. It's a lovely little primary school here in Warrington. During the actual lockdown time, we managed to get everything transferred home, and we got home logins and transferred all of our phones and all of our systems to our computers at home. So my office manager and myself, we both were able to work from home for the majority of that time. So that was good. It was great to be able to continue working. It was challenging to try and balance everything at home. At times I felt like I wished we could just be back in, because at least you had a little more structure to your day.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I got more into the rhythm of it. And then since the 8th of June, we've been back in the actual physical building. The teachers were all there throughout and on a rota and working different hours. But we in the office, you know, we were able to continue that support from home. So, but since the 8th, from then until now, I've been back in the office, which has been good in a way because I've gotten that structure back that I missed. And my day is actually shorter, which you know, it was a really long, drawn out day when I was at home during lockdown, because, you know, I'd answer the phone all the hours. There was a huge amount of work needed to get from parents and to give to teachers and all of that kind of stuff throughout. So being back in the actual building has sort of structured it a bit. But what I've really missed is being at home with my children and my youngest daughter, who's 10 in year 5, who needed you know, I wouldn't say a lot of support, but like just liked to have me around for her homeschooling. I felt like I had to leave that maybe a little bit earlier than I'd hoped, because she's still very much in that schedule, and I am, you know, I'm sort of back in my sort of real world kind of job with a little bit less time to give to her. But
Yeah,
that's what I'm doing.
but I imagine even when you were at home and you were doing your job, it was then the balance that you had of, you know, normally you go to work and that's it, you're at work, you're in that environment, your whole focus is there. But in the last few months, you've had to be at work in your home environment, balancing absolutely everything around you. How have you done that and managed that?
Yes, I
Or
know.
have you managed that?
I know it was a little crazy, but at the same time, it felt quite indulgent, I guess. So I have 3 children. I have a son who's nearly 17, my daughter who's 14, and my other daughter who's 10. So I think what we did was we put them first. My husband then, of course, switched to working from home immediately, but his job really requires him to just be on the phone on conference calls all the time. So it was almost as though he was still out of the house, because he had to do that job. He had to be that available for work. So I think I took on the bulk of it, which I was happy to do, because it felt like it was this new normal that we were getting used to. We were all doing it together. It felt quite fun. You know, it took a little while for everyone to figure out what their schedules were, but I really tried to make sure that we stayed on a schedule, like a weekday work day, school day schedule, so that then when the weekends came, it felt like it was a different time. I think that was a good thing we did, because it just gave us a little more structure. We've definitely all learned about each other. I've definitely learned that I would not want to work from home full time, because that balance is really tough for me. And I found that I wasn't really separating tasks. I would be answering the phone, trying to reply to an email, and loading the dishwasher, and trying to like gesture to the kids in the background and telling them what to do, or telling them to get back upstairs and do your work or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Tick that box and that's not going to happen again.
yeah,
You've
no,
done that now.
no.
Yeah.
My husband says he could probably keep working from home for forever. He's really good at it, but he doesn't have as many distractions. So I don't know. And I found myself working right in the kitchen, because I felt like I had to guard the fridge from my teenagers, who would have stripped the fridge bare. And, you know, in the beginning, it was very, very stressful going out food shopping and trying to get those jobs done. So I felt like if I had managed to go shopping and fill the fridge, the last thing I was going to do was let them loose on it and then eat, you know, things I'd planned for dinner. So during the middle of the
Were
day.
you successful in guarding the fridge?
Sometimes, but the problem is that their days got a lot longer and they started to stay up much later. And I would be pretty tired by the end of my day. So, you know, I'd say the weak point was around 10 o'clock at night. I'd often come down in the morning and there'd be like a loaf of bread completely, you know, in crumbs, just a couple pieces left. Hot chocolate, all the milk gone, and yeah, it had been raided.
You love
So,
them so much. You smile through gritted teeth on that bit.
of course. Of course.
Yeah, but what you said there, I think that's what everyone's tried to find, is that structure and maintaining it, because otherwise it just blurs into one. And how
Yeah.
have you managed to do that in terms of what have you done on the weekends, particularly when it was lockdown? What
Yeah.
did you do as a family or for yourself to maintain that positivity and stay
Yeah.
I guess?
Yeah. I mean, I feel this sounds maybe a bit too glib, because we have been very lucky not to have had very close family members affected by COVID-19. We've had some friends who've had it, and some more distant relatives. So I have to preface this by saying that we had a lot of fun in those times because we weren't worrying about people close to us. So I think we were lucky in that way. But our structure was basically, we did really try and stay to that schedule during the week. And on the weekends, we just sort of were like, we were camping. Like sometimes we actually literally went camping in the garden. We did that for a couple of nights. Maybe never to be repeated. I don't know. We just did. We were lucky with the weather too, weren't we? So we spent a lot of time outside. We explored new areas. We went for lovely walks. We've definitely discovered some new countryside near us, which I love. I think we kind of huddled together as a group as well too. And I think that is what I look at as a real bonus, because the times when, especially my oldest, who likes to be out and about, they couldn't do that kind of stuff. We were at home, but we really treasured that time together. It sounds a little corny, but things like board games and family movie nights and
This is not corny at all. I love it.
I mean, they might be a bit embarrassed hearing it's like all their friends knew all the sort of campfire kumbaya stuff we were doing, but I mean, it was really fun. And we tried to make an event of the weekend, you know, whether it was like having pancakes or having a barbecue or, like I said, camping outside or just trying to do fun and interesting things. We got a massive paddling pool. We've all been in that paddling pool. So that's been really lovely. I'd say that everybody just became slightly younger versions of themselves, and we just all played a lot more, which was great.
And you cherish that time, because
Yes.
there's not that often that you can all be together. And
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I was given a little bit of a bonus, like, you know, I know it's about 12 weeks, wasn't it, that where it was really, really locked down. But I felt like that time was a real bonus time to spend with the kids, and just sort of reconnect with them. And it's not like we didn't have any choice, but we were glad to be in that situation. I don't know. It does sound maybe like I'm idealizing a little bit, but I felt really grateful for that time. And my youngest daughter, who's 10, like I mentioned before, we call her our cruise director, because she is just a little activity kid. She loves thinking up games for us all and things for us to do. So we just kind of let her do whatever she wanted with us. And so we would wake up and she would have set up a scavenger hunt for us. We had quizzes, games, movie nights, you name it, she did it. She was building forts.
She's the social secretary in your household.
She's exactly that. She's definitely our most extroverted of the family. So she missed a lot of her activities that she'd be doing out in the world. She missed her friends a lot from school. But I feel like she sort of made us fill that gap for her. And in that way, we all just went along with that fun. And, you know, perhaps if the world had been open and going on, my older two would have gone, yeah, I'm not doing that. And they would have, you know, gone. But because we were sort of a captured audience, we just went with it. It was so much fun. It was really lovely. I've tried to keep as many of those like little scraps of paper and all those little treasure maps and things that she's made, because I think I really want to look back on that and,
Yeah,
you know.
a few of my friends have done that. They're making lockdown scrapbooks, and
Oh,
yeah,
that's a great idea.
yeah. So like you said, it's just things that you would never really get the opportunity to, as well.
That's great.
Wow. Yeah, I think every family needs your daughter to sort of get everyone together. And
We felt really lucky to have her. I mean, I can't say that everybody felt that at like 8 in the morning when she was,
with a
making everybody
clipboard.
get up and go on a nature hunt. But also too, I think she's one of the things that we did that came out of some ideas that she had, and I have to say her school was so encouraging about this as well. They had them to do like kindness challenges, to come up with these different things, and she involved the whole family in it. And so, we all got involved in we did like a bake sale for charity where we just delivered cakes to friends and family, socially distanced. We've done like food collection things, all these ideas that they were bandying about at school. Alice would bring home and say, right, we're doing this. And we were just like, okay. We said okay to almost everything. And I think the kids especially loved it. Like Sophie, my middle child, I think she'll be bereft when she has to get back to normal life, because she loves lockdown. Also too, she's definitely learned she likes that independent learning. So that's been really interesting to see.
Yeah,
So
we've
we'll
spoken
see.
to a few schools actually, and those, a lot of people have struggled with it and have struggled to adapt. But if they do like their independent learning, they can really excel and do it at their own pace. And it's really interesting to hear,
Yeah.
and be interesting to see how schools change their approaches in the future, particularly for older students.
I
think that's
totally agree. I mean, yes, with GCSE courses especially, there's a lot of independent learning they can do. And I actually hope it takes some of the pressure off just testing, because I think that those who can do work independently and be able to sort of take that body of work and focus on answering questions or writing an essay or whatever it is that they're meant to do, can really show how those skills would be useful certainly at A level and definitely at university if they choose to go on. So I think that I hope they don't just abandon home learning once we do get back into classrooms, because I think that really is a skill, and especially now looking at how working from home is changing. I think if children learn to adapt to that at school, they'll be that much better prepared, in the working environment as
for
well.
the
So
workplace. That's so true. I hadn't really thought about that, but actually, yeah, a lot of for young people to prepare themselves into the working community, that's also going to change and so on. So no, that's really interesting. And you said earlier that you haven't had anyone that's been affected by COVID, and I think those that haven't, and luckily for myself I haven't, and I've been so far removed from the front line that actually I've been exactly the same as you and embracing all the positives. So it's great to hear that your family have experienced that as well.
yeah.
And I think your youngest daughter definitely has a career ahead of her in event management.
If we ever have another lockdown again, I'm going to put her on social media, put her, put her out there and get other people motivated.
And what's her name again? What's your youngest daughter?
Alice.
Yeah, I can see it now. Her Instagram page. Yeah, at
Oh
Play
yeah.
with Alice. What to do?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She'll get you going.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And so what I've asked a few of the other guests that we've had on is sort of any recommendations for books, podcasts, and films. And obviously, you've said about the movie nights that you've had. Is there anything that you've discovered or rediscovered while this?
That's so funny. Kind of like how I felt about reading books, like I was going to read loads of books. My husband said, right, we're going to get the kids to watch all the classic movies that we loved, and they are going to love them. It's going to be so great. So we tried E.T., Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Dead Poet Society. I thought all three of those would just be fantastic, and they hated all of them. I mean,
No.
Back to the Future was probably the only successful story. Truman Show, we did the Truman Show, they like that. But E.T., they were just like, oh, yawn. And Dead Poet Society, they walked out. That Dead Poet Society, like, I remember watching that at my son's age and thinking, wow, this book, this literature, this is the way I want to spend my life. And no, none of that stuff. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I felt was hilarious, but not in a good way.
That was a positive, I was going to say.
Yeah. So we that didn't work out so well. So we sort of let them set the way. I think what we've done is we've watched loads of box sets of things, you know, like we've gotten into things like Modern Family. That's been sort of our series that we've watched really from beginning to end. They like Friends, although they think it's hilarious and really old-fashioned. So we tend to have like a running theme of one episode after another playing in our house. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, those kinds of shows. My middle daughter and I, we really love Schitt's Creek. Sorry, it sounds like a swear word, but it isn't. It's SCHITTS. That's been a really great series. So I think we've probably been focusing more on series. I think also too, it helps with attention span and things like that. But the movies have been quite funny. It's hard to find a movie that a 17-year-old to a 10-year-old is going to agree on. There have been lots of suggestions for horror movies, which we've not taken them up on. What else did we watch that they liked? Forrest Gump. They like Forrest Gump a lot.
Always a winner.
Yeah, and sometimes really random funny things. Oh, of course. I mean, my daughter got a Disney Plus subscription for her birthday right before lockdown, so that's really kept her entertained. So we've seen pretty much every Marvel movie. We've seen Hamilton, and that's come out at the weekend. So it sounds like we watch a lot of TV and a lot of movies, but but again, I think. I know. Thank goodness for streaming. My sister and I always say, can you imagine if this lockdown happened in the 80s? Like we would have nothing. We would have none of the entertainment options that our children have now.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't know how lucky they are really with just constant entertainment, constant streaming, you know, podcasts and the like, everything at their fingertips. We would have been waiting at a certain time for a certain show to start, you know, with one phone.
Don't have to press record or anything. Yeah. And also
exactly.
like, how lucky we've been with the weather as well. Like, you know, it could have been a very different lockdown if there was rain earlier on. So no, it's
I totally agree. We were so lucky with the weather, I think, because that's been such a lovely treat. I think another thing that Alice, my youngest, and I have particularly enjoyed is really just working in the garden and watching things grow. One of the loveliest things that her teachers did right before school closed down, which was such a great idea. They gave them all little pots of earth and they planted sunflower seeds in them, and they took them home and said, just let us know how your sunflowers go. And that has been such a lovely thing to do, because they're now, you know, taller than Alice. They're about 5 feet tall and they're gorgeous. And we've measured them and watched them grow literally since little seeds. So measuring time in that way by watching things grow and seeing nature sort of burst into bloom when the weather was so amazing was like a privilege. And hearing nature, I mean, you must have felt the same, like just because things were so quiet, then hearing nature be so loud, it was incredible. It just felt like every day was something different.
Yeah, and just to be present and recognize it. No one's rushing around as much, and I've certainly found that, you know, I've embraced gardening a bit, which I never thought I would.
Yeah, me neither.
So interesting. Yeah, it's one of those ones I need to continue once I'm back to normal, because
and that's the thing. We have a lot of plants now that we have to take care of. Now that I'm back at work and things are starting to get a little more normal, I'm like, what have we done? I have a lot of things to take care of now all of a sudden. But.
Yeah, I know, exactly. You need to have a full-time gardener soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Harriet, thank you so much for chatting to me. It's been amazing to hear, and just like how your whole family have embraced it. And I hope that lots of people have sort of taken hints and tips from this about how they can move it forward. So thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. It's been really nice talking to you.
But my final question,
yes,
before we head off, is who would you like to nominate to be on the next episode of Positivity?
Well, I've gotten her permission first, so I know she's okay with this. But I'm going to nominate my friend Sarah Williamson. She is American like me, living in Britain. She lives down in Harpenden, and she's lovely and wonderful, and honestly, really one of the most positive people I've ever met. She's so kind and generous and sweet. So I think she'd be great to talk to.
Oh, thank you. That would be great. I look forward to chatting to her. And that's another person from in and around Harpenden. I would say 75% of everybody on Positivity so far is from
really?
Harpenden. So
oh, there's a nice friend there. That's lovely. I mean, we used to live in Harpenden too, so that's how But it's such a wonderful place to be, and it's such a lovely group of people. So.
Well, it must be. Everyone's really happy and positive there. So.
I guess so. I guess so. Something in the water.
Thanks very much, Harriet.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Bye, Alex.
Bye.